It's part two. Again, this is the three elements of game design. So we have context with an X, context, playability, and gameplay. So these are three things that you got to think about when people are, or when you want to create a game. So go to the next thing. Context. So the first thing that we're talking about is how can we create this buy-in? Buy-in meaning like how do we get you on board to feel like, oh, this is a good game, or this is like an iffy game. Usually it's a storyline. Usually it's a location, and sometimes it's the objectives and tasks. So storyline. If it's a good story, you're gonna buy into it. And you're gonna forget everything else. You're like, oh, this is like really good. Now, just because you have a story does not mean that it's gonna be great. But with that said, for generations, humans have been telling stories, and that's how we pass things on, pass things down. But like I said, it has to be a good story. I can tell you, I tried playing that new Mortal Kombat game where it has a storyline. Mortal Kombat was usually about fighting. It's a fighting game. Two players, you fight, you move on. Two people fight, you move on. They came up with the storyline where these characters now have to fight each other and they have to go through this, and now we hear that they're going to visit this location, and forget that game. I don't want to listen to it anymore. Like, there's so much talking, and you might also think about if there's a lot of talking and there's not a lot of action, then that may not be the game for you. So storyline. Location. Well, it depends. Are you into games that are far away? Maybe you just don't like sci-fi games. You're like, oh, that's boring. I want to play something that's more interesting. Or that you don't like real games. You don't like playing the golf game because it's like, it's boring. I want to play something that's more imaginary. I want to play something like League of Legends. And League of Legends is in a far away place, so location can throw us off too. The objectives and tasks. We connect to things when we're like, oh, I really dig this thing that they're making me do in this game. It's this objective, these little goals that I have to meet. I can do that. The Spider-Man game came out, and you're supposed to save civilians in one objective or one task. Okay, I could do that, but then I tried doing another one. I was like, it's hard. Same thing. Batman game came out. There was one component in there that it was trying to beat the Riddler stuff, but it was too much, and it's like the challenges may be difficult, or you don't connect to them. So context is all about getting you to join and be part of the story or the game. So again, storyline, location, objectives, and tasks. Trivia. So we're going to do the timer again. You got 1 minute. And this one will be easy. So it says, what was the first console game? There's so many. What was the first console game? We have about 50 seconds. We can work our way backwards. We can say, currently right now we have PlayStation 5. So we work our way backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's also Xbox and Nintendo. So how far does this go back? You got about 30 seconds. What was the first console game? You have to have these inside of your notes. So make sure that you have them in there. You have about 20 seconds. I remember my first console. I remember my cousin's first console. I remember my first console as an adult. So I was like, I'm going to get this one because I finally want this. Got about 5 seconds, guys. All right. So again, what was the first console game? Make sure that you look that up and have that in your notes. Now, this slide is going to have a lot of information in it. So you're going to have to work your way through it, watch these videos, click on them, it'll play. But basically, playability is how everything works. People also say the mechanics. or how your character interacts in the environment. So usually there's good playability, where it's easy, you can pick it up and you can go, you kind of know how to do it. And then there's playability that what the heck were they thinking? Okay. There's all types of playing games. There's 2D, there's platformers, there's 3D, which is what we mainly have now. Here's 2D, or side-scrolling ones. But what I want you to understand is if you click on these and you watch these, I want you to see these examples. They're talking about the awkwardness that we went through. So when we were first playing games, we had this. Now right here is Atari. It was weird. Nobody understood this. Now it's not only just the mechanics, it can also be the story. So when someone was playing Atari, the E.T. game, there was no text to read. All the graphics were kind of weird to follow. No one knew what to do. They were just kind of guessing and button mashing and just moving things. They didn't know it could go off to the side. So the layout, the navigation, and the interface, all of it, it was just kind of weird. You could see points, but no one understood. You could try to go look up some videos of this online. We also had Ninja Turtle game. Came out, you side scroll, and I believe Super Mario Bros., one of them was kind of like this too, where this character, this Ninja Turtle, is walking, but when he gets to a certain point on there, he gets stuck and he can't jump past things. That was so frustrating. Then we start moving to PlayStation, and Nintendo 64 came out about the same time. This game, Superman 64, this game was dumb. You didn't know what to do. You thought you were actually going to do everything that Superman does, but when you were playing him as a superhero, it made you go through rings. You had, instead of like missions on saving people and fighting crime, it made you go through rings, and it was frustrating because you did not know how to play it. You didn't know how the controls worked. You're like, oh, this is so messed up. That's why I had this picture here. It's like it's evil. Like, why would you create this game and put this game out there? And then you also have PlayStation games. When you got into 3D stuff, you had things like they called them tank controls. Resident Evil and Tomb Raider, and there's other games like this. They showed tank controls, and they were so horrible because now you can control. When you were first playing games, you just moved the character and the screen moved with you. However, now you're in charge of the character and moving the camera, and you have to angle the camera a certain way as your character moves. And sometimes when that happened, when you thought you were moving it the right way, it would switch to a next scene, and then it would just go a weird way, and you're like, why the heck did you even come up with this? Okay, so here's some examples to look through. See, you had to turn the camera. It was so weird. And then you have to walk. When you walk and turn the camera, oh my goodness, it was frustrating. For some people, that even created like this motion sickness. And there's a word for it. I can't think of it right now, but that was a real thing. And they were calling it tank controls. Resident Evil was one of them that I remember. And so what I wrote down here is sometimes the story or the layout, the navigation, or how it worked, or getting to certain things, or just the game or the controls stunk. And we hated it. But that was playability. Playability is just being able, can you pick it up and can you play it? Can you understand what's going on? Can you get through the levels? Do you understand what's going on? All right, so playability.